empathy, learning the different levels over my career that's helped me come to this point of understanding empathy at the surface level through, I'm going to sound arrogant and say deep, compassionate empathy. Probably started with my military experience where I learned 95. I was sworn in the military in 94. Started basic training in 95. Learned about the laws that requires us to, the Geneva Convention that requires us to provide basic necessities of life to our enemy. After all, we have the same job from opposing sides, from opposing views, and so at the core of empathy, that's probably where my education or experience in empathy started. Along the way, I think that really evolved into different levels before I started learning different types of empathy, where in truck driving. Yes, I learned empathy in truck driving, where working in the bush, away from cell service, sometimes required sending 1 or 3 word texts. In other words, we'd sometimes have 1 word conversations because the cell service wasn't good enough to have a phone call conversation, send a text or a picture, and there was often a good chance that a 1-word text or a 3-word text might or might not go through, but a 1-word text had a better chance of going through than 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 words. So sometimes you could have an entire conversation with 1 word. And that was another level of my practicing empathy at a different level, from a different context, where it's really not hard. It's really not hard to have a 1-word conversation when you understand the other person's perspective. And so it didn't happen all the time, though. When you work in that kind of environment, it's just something that happens. You don't really think about it. It's just, you adapt, you learn, and so you do what you got to do. And so, I didn't think about it until I come to learn more about empathy. It was just a thing we did. So then I got to be homeless, but it wasn't by choice. I would say it wasn't entirely by choice, entirely because I had the option of living in jail or defending myself in court, and defending myself meant I had to learn the law best I could. Can't pay a lawyer to go to court 3 times a month, especially not for 3 years, so I had to learn the law best I could to defend myself best I could, and so to me it was like a military mission being homeless. And I shouldn't say it that way. What I should say is I chose to live at the law library so I could defend myself, and that meant I had to eat at the homeless shelter, and I had to sleep at the homeless shelter, and like a military mission, it was just something I had to do to complete the mission, to defend myself in court. And one time just outside of Legal, Alberta, I had to sleep in the ditch. Well, yes and no, it was in the ditch, but it was at a gas station. The gas station was closing for the night, and I got my military brain took over, and I got some cardboard from the gas station, and I got to sleep on the cardboard in the ditch and out of the wind best I could, and it was just part of the mission. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but so sleeping and eating in homeless shelters, I dressed in a business suit, so I got to see firsthand what the homeless are dealing with. What the staff make them do. My favorite example is clearly no empathy for the homeless, where I, like a military mission, I just chose to get up at 3 in the morning. Why would anybody get up at 3 in the morning? Who in their right mind would wake up at 3 in the morning? Well, that's easy for a soldier to do. And I often woke up at 3 in the morning so I could have a shower. Because the homeless shelter required the homeless to wake up at 3 in the morning to have a shower. They themselves, the staff don't wake up at 3 in the morning for a shower, so why would they expect the homeless to? Doesn't make sense. And so I would say zero empathy for the homeless. And the average person certainly wouldn't. and I had a little choice to present myself to be presentable in court or at the law library, meant I had to do what I had to do to complete the mission. Even if it meant waking up at 3 in the morning. Some of the homeless went to jobs without a shower because hardly getting any sleep in the shelter. And then they're expected to wake up at 3 to have a shower before they go to work. Even the working homeless, some of the working homeless didn't have a shower at 3 in the morning, because who in their right mind would do that when you could be and need sleep? So, so that's another level of empathy, is my witnessing firsthand what the homeless had to deal with. Some of the other empathy. When I started learning about empathy, I learned from Chris Voss. He likes to name drop different experts on specific subjects. Now, I don't remember offhand who it was that codified the 3 levels of empathy, or the three different types of empathy. Each have different levels, though the 3 types are cognitive, emotional, cognitive, and there's a 3rd type of empathy. So then I started learning more and different information about empathy. But I think my favorite is the 1-word conversation. When you can have a 1-word conversation, and actually now another is, and I started learning this when I was around the homeless, though I better understood it learning empathy from Chris Voss, master negotiator, while on how to listen to somebody who doesn't say a word, how to hear somebody who doesn't say a word. Somebody does not have to say anything to give you an earful if we listen with empathy. If we look at their situation from their point of view, from their perspective, from where they're standing, the easy example anybody can practice at the first level, basic level, anybody can see clearly how the coffee barista is doing. It's easy to see the coffee barista might be angry or having a bad day. It's easy to see if they're exhausted. I would say the 3 basic emotions are bad or angry, exhausted or tired, and having a good or great day. Clearly see it on their face. They don't have to say a single word, and that's just blatant obvious. Tell them how they're feeling often makes them smile. Even if they're having a bad day, even if they're clearly having a bad day, tell them it looks like they're having a bad day. And most coffee baristas will have a great big smile on their face because they're happy. Somebody can see how they feel. Society doesn't teach us that. Society says, I have to tell you how I feel for you to know how I feel, despite I'm clearly wearing it on my face. So coffee barista does it. Anybody can see how the coffee barista feels, and label it for them. That's the first level of empathy. Listening, empathetic listening, reflective listening. Reflect how they feel. Tell them how they feel. And as you practice, learn more and different skills about listening with zero exchange for words. You'll get better at picking up nuances, unspoken truths, reading between the lines, listening to what is not being said. I think I'll end on that tonight. Practice empathy with everyone, everywhere, all the time, so that when you need to, when it counts with a loved one, it just comes out. You can easily read the situation. Requires staying curious. Curiosity seems to be the most important tool in all of this. Superpower. Good night.